The real game start for Arizona basketball and a funny Brent Brennan quote.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, this show is brought to you today by Game Time. Create an account and use code Locked On for Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Arizona, Wisconsin is here, and the games get real. Now, I think there's a couple things that we know about this Arizona basketball team at this point, but again, there's a lot that we don't know. Keep in mind, the first thing with Arizona basketball is that this team is definitely, this team is deep. This team is deep, it is good, and there is a lot to like about this basketball team. As we talked about before, Tommy Lloyd did a very, very nice job of basically filling out this roster in the offseason to the point now where you got toughness, where you got toughness, you got size, you got shooting, you got guard play, and you've got depth. Depth is a big thing with this Arizona team that I think is going to be much, much needed. And not only will it be much needed, it's also going to be something that Arizona hasn't necessarily been able to lean on over the years. And what I mean by that is that this has been a team where it's been kind of front loaded. You've had players that were just, quite frankly, just maybe not quite that good, and you were just trying to steal some minutes with them. That is no longer the case here. I think that it's also fair to say at this point that this is probably going to be Tommy Lloyd's best team. And I think that we're also kind of at the stage now where you're going to expect some things. Now, the first two teams that Arizona has played are absolutely atrocious. There's really no way around that. And you can take from that what you will. You can look at the Canisius game, and you can not only can you look at the Canisius game, you can look at some other things and be like, okay, what can you learn from that? And I think that's what we've kind of learned from this point. But the games get real now. Now, Wisconsin is far from a world beater, and again, I don't mean that in a negative light, but this isn't your Wisconsin teams that beat Arizona to get to the Final Four or anything like that. It is a team that lacks a little bit, I think, in that front. So let's talk a little bit about what Wisconsin has, though, because they do have some good players, though. The first one you got is John Tonja. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but either way, averaging about 17 per game. Transfer, he's a pretty good player. Again, a wing from from my family's neck of the woods, Omaha, Nebraska. He was a nice little pickup. This is his 6th year of college, so again, obviously a little bit older. Gives you a nice little bit of versatility there on the wing, though, and somebody that has been around the block. Would he start at Arizona? No. He is not better than Caleb Love. He's not better than KJ Lewis. So that's going to be a common refrain here from what we're talking about. Then I think after that, you also look at then somebody who also has been around forever, Max Klesbit. Klesbit averaging 16 a game, another about 6'4" wing from Wisconsin. He's not a bad player. If you remember him last year, he averaged about 10 a game. Another one, though, and I don't mean this in a condescending light, but would not start at Arizona. And just because somebody wouldn't start at Arizona doesn't mean that they're not good. It just means that they wouldn't start at Arizona, so we're going to have a little bit higher expectations. Those are going to be interesting wing matchups, though, for Arizona. And when I say interesting wing matchups, I say interesting wing matchups for Caleb Love, for KJ Lewis. That will be fun to see how that all does play out. But overall, not bad wings there. But then you look at it going on down the road. You've also got John Blackwell, another wing, 6'4". Again, notice a common refrain. These are bigger. These are more physical, girthy guys. If I may put that correctly. He's another one, averaging 12 points per game. Good player. Again, another one wouldn't start at Arizona, but that means, though, this is a tough team though that Arizona is going to be encountering, and that is something that you obviously got to keep in mind. Plus, the home court advantage is going to be super, super big here. Then you got Steven Kroll. Again, another one, 7 foot, fifth year of college. Again, another guy that's been around forever. He was on that team last year, 11-7. Big dude, 7 foot. Probably going to have Mo Crevis on him, and we'll see if he is ready for Mo Crevis and if Mo Crevis is ready for him. But either way, he's another good basketball player. He's an interesting guy because he's 7 foot, doesn't really block shots. I expect Arizona to be able to have their way with them. Another player as well that you got to be able to keep in mind, Xavier Amos. Xavier Amos, our guy, also known as Xavier Amos. There was a massive debate on the Wildcat Authority boards as to what as Arizona should go after Javier, aka Xavier Amos, and they decided that that's basically what that they were going to go with Trey Townsend. That was the right decision. They decided to go after Trey Townsend. Okay, because he is better. But Amos, 10 points in the last game. So that's going to be a fun one that Arizona fans are going to follow. That is going to be an enjoyable one as well. But overall, this Wisconsin team is not great. Arizona should win this game, but you also got to remember in college basketball, when you're going on the road, especially in environments where there's a lot of fans, it can be a little bit different, and that's something that I think that Arizona fans have to keep in mind here. Is that yes, Arizona's better across the board. I don't think Wisconsin has anybody that would start at Arizona. As a matter of fact, they don't. But this is also it's a veteran team. It's a well-coached team, and it's a team that wants to get to the NCAA tournament. They are light years better than Canisius. They are light years better than Old Dominion. So there is that. But this is really the first one where you're kind of like, all right, well, this is going to be a fascinating one to follow and see how this does play out. But Arizona already is I think Arizona is in a good spot here. And it's a good little test, I think, before you really get you got Duke in in less than 2 weeks. Then you're obviously going to the Bahamas, the Battle of Atlantis. So that's going to be interesting as well. But this is a game again that Arizona should win. I am curious I'm curious as to what the point spread is going to be, because it's probably not going to be as much as some might think, because that home court advantage does matter. Watching this Arizona team, though, I think that it's also fair to say that you're going to this is going to be a interesting. This is a team again that Arizona should take care of, because you've got Jaden Bradley, you got Caleb Love, you got KJ Lewis, you got Trey Townsend, you got Mo Crevis, you got Tobe Awaka. I mean, there are guys that are coming off the bench for Arizona that would start for Wisconsin. So you got to take that into account. And then obviously the X factor in all of this is Carter Bryant. Carter Bryant's going to be an interesting one to watch as this all does play out throughout the season, because Carter is Carter is an incredibly talented player. He's very, again, I mean, you can watch Carter Bryant for about 5 minutes and then realize, wow, that guy is really, really good. He's, like I said, Carter's a stud. And I think we're going to watch with Carter, and we're going to see that he is, his one and done, or he might be a one and done. I think that he is somebody that was probably a little bit underrated in the grand scheme of things, because I think a lot of times recruiting experts look at things and they just try to get a little bit ahead of themselves, and they decide, okay, well, this is where it's at with so-and-so. So we will see how that one does. We will see how that one does play out. All right, but we're now going to get into a little bit more of the out of conference, and what should we really, really expect here. And I think that's going to be a very, very fascinating aspect to what Arizona basketball is encountering here, because there are a lot of interesting things that I don't think that anybody really knows quite what to make of. But first, before we get into any of that, game time. All right, now, you might say to yourself, man, I'd really like to go to that Arizona Duke game. How can I get to that game? Well, you know what? The first spot that you're probably going to want to check out is Game Time. At Game Time, you can download the Game Time app, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time. What time is it? Game time. Ooh. All right. With Game Time as well, you also know that your money is. There's a lot of people that have done it, and there's a lot of success stories from this. So again, check it out at Game Time. Another one you're gonna thank me later on this Game Time app. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, let's look ahead a little bit to Arizona Duke. That is going to be the game that so many people are going to be watching, and this is the game where I think that Arizona, it's going to be an interesting one to see how they match up, because with Duke, you've obviously got, everybody knows about Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg is obviously fantastic. He's going to be the first pick in the draft. The odd thing about Cooper Flagg that you generally don't see in tall guys like that, you generally don't see dudes that are, how do I put this? You generally don't see guys that could lead the nation in shot blocking, and they can lead the nation in shot blocking while being a weak side defender. He has got a very, very unique skill as far as being able to block shots, and that's not something that you generally see a lot in this day and age. As a matter of fact, it's something you generally don't see in this day and age, but he's really, really good. I mean, you saw what he did against Team USA. He's the goods. Him and DeSanta or whatever his name is, they are. He's not in college right now, but those are the guys that are those are the favorites to be the number one picks in the draft, and rightfully so in their draft classes, obviously. But he's really, really good. I mean, there's no other way around it. Who will Arizona put on him? I think that's the question. Who do you put on him? Because do you put a Trey Townsend on him and have him use kind of his strength and experience, or do you use somebody else? Do you decide that, you know what, that's probably not going to necessarily work, so we need to go in another direction? I just don't know what that other direction is. Carter, I don't think Carter's strong enough at this point. Maybe he could surprise a little bit. We saw last year with KJ Lewis on Deron Holmes. The problem with that is that KJ is just giving up too much height, and I think that's the concern, is that when you're going against these really tall dudes, when you give up a lot of height, you can be really strong, you can be really physical, but it's also going to be a little bit of an issue as far as being able to take care of that. Now, they got a big man that's also really, really good as well. That's going to be a game where you're going to need Mo Kribis in there. Obviously, he's a really, really good player. Some of the other guys I don't worry about as much. Tyrese Proctor is really, really good, but I put him in kind of that DeJuan Harris. I put him in kind of that DeJuan Harris type role where you're like, okay, he's a good facilitator. He's not really the dude that's going to be able to make he's never going to drop 29, 30 points on you. And guys, like, if you're not a point guard and you can't do that, I can respect what else you can do, but I'm also not going to necessarily be super scared about that. And I think that's something that you got to keep in mind with Proctor. Watching him as well, like I said, but this is going to be an interesting game. You've got some holdovers as well from previous years, obviously on the wing as well. It's a game that I think it's going to show, because I think Duke is about as talented a team as there is in the country. And if it's not the most talented team in the country, it is certainly right there. So this is going to be a very, very good test for the University of Arizona. I'm excited to see how this one does play out, because again, Duke is really, really good. Now, looking at some of those other out-of-conference games, and we're going to get to the Brennan quote here in a second, which was fantastic. But looking at some of those other out-of-conference games, obviously UCLA is a fascinating one. I think UCLA stinks, though. That's the best way that I could put it. UCLA does next to nothing for me, and when I look at UCLA, I don't really think that this isn't a team that is befitting of the UCLA name. It still baffles me at this point that Mick Cronin could be this far along and have multiple years where you can basically say that yeah, there's no NBA talent here. I don't know how that happens I don't know how that happens, but it just kind of is what it is. With so I would expect Arizona to be able to beat that or win that game. Plus they're in Phoenix, so you got to remember that as well. You're in Phoenix. It's a game that Arizona should win. Now, let's see here. We are. Then you look at the Battle of Atlantis. That's where it gets very, very fascinating with the Battle of Atlantis. With the Battle of Atlantis, I think that it is it's going to be an interesting one because you got the three games, 3 days. Obviously, going to be playing Gonzaga though in one of them, and with Gonzaga, hopefully you're playing Gonzaga. Gonzaga's good, but Gonzaga's beatable. You watched ASU give them everything they could handle, and I think that's if you're Arizona, you're thinking, all right, well, that's something that we can definitely hang our hat on. So we'll see how that one does play out. But this is a good, like I said, with this Arizona team, they match up fairly well, I think, with about everybody, and that's why I think that you've got to have fairly good. I think you've got to have a fairly good idea that, where everything stands in all of this. And I think Arizona is in a very, very good spot going forward. So, again, we're going to see exactly how this does play out. But Tommy Lloyd did a very good job with the roster, as we talked about. He did a very good job. And I think that's something that you've got to be able to, give the man a lot of credit for because they kind of match up well with about anybody. There could be some other tough games in there as well, but those are the ones that I think you're really looking at. And obviously that Duke game is going to be huge, huge, huge for Arizona. So we'll see how that one does. We'll see how that one does play out. Now, I think with a couple things too, we're going to move to football here in just a minute. But overall, out of conference expectations, I think Arizona should be. What should Arizona be? I think Arizona should probably be something like I don't know, maybe drop 1-2 games max. I'll probably put it at 1.5 because I expect them to win a lot of these games, but there are going to be some tough games in there as well. So we'll see. Duke's obviously coming for revenge, so that's something to obviously keep in mind as well. We'll see how that plays out. All right, now we're going to get into something that is very, very funny to me. We are going to talk about Brent Brennan and where Brent Brennan is now with community fan support. I guess he has decided that he needs to get that. But first, FanDuel. All right, here's the deal with FanDuel. Check it out. With FanDuel, all kinds of good stuff. You can put down $5 and you get $150 in free plays if that bet wins. That simple, that easy. Listen, college basketball's here, and you might say, Mike, you're an idiot. I want to bet against you. You know what? You wouldn't be the first person that would say that, and you're not going to be the last person that's going to say that either. Go against me then. But either way, do it on FanDuel because FanDuel is a great spot where you can have a lot of fun, and it can be a fun, immersive experience as well with a FanDuel. Check it out. I think what you also like about it too is that if you got a hunch, you can bet in game. You don't have to wait until after. You just know that your money is going to be good. So again, check it out at FanDuel.com. Another one of these ones. You're going to thank me later. Sooner or later, people are going to start listening to me on this. Check it out at FanDuel.com. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about Brent Brennan. Brent Brennan is now out, and Brent Brennan, who basically decided this entire offseason that he was not going to do anything to engage the community, and he was very upfront about it. Not only was he upfront about it, he said that he wasn't. There was really no reason for him to. there was really no reason for him to do it because that's not his job. Fair enough. Well, I guess Brent Brennan has now decided that it is his job. And so here's what Brent Brennan said earlier at his presser. We need Tucson, our fans, alums, students to show up and rock this stadium. I know everybody is frustrated with where we're at, but we need them to show up anyway. Please rally. We need you. All right. Had Brent Brennan been doing that before, I think the fan base would have been, yeah, let's rally behind Coach. Brent Brennan did not do that before, and that makes absolutely no sense. I've been saying that from day one. Why in the world would you come into a place that's supposedly your dream job and decide that it's not really your job to do any of this stuff? So that's where I think a lot of people are a little bit confused, a little bit perplexed by what Brent Brennan is saying. But again, for the millionth time, this is just a dude that's in over his head. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Don't really know where else to put it. But at the same time, he's just in over his head. And there's nothing wrong with it. Heck, half of my life I'm in over my head, and guess what? It just is the way it is. But there's really no other way to put it. The man is in over his head, and it is it's kind of sad to watch. He's got bad advice. The people around him clearly have no clue what they're doing. So, just from an understanding of the community to just basic things like, yeah, dude, it was stupid to put up those curtains around the weight room and then say that they were up last year. I mean, no, they weren't. Second of all, whatever. But it just makes no sense. So it's kind of the blind leading the blind. I do always want to make the one exception, though. Dwayne Aquina and Alonzo Carter, I think they are very good. I think they know exactly what they're doing. The problem, though, is that one is the defensive coordinator and the other is the running backs coach. So there's not a lot that you can do there. But either way, this is a staff that just is in over its head. It is what it is. You got a lot of guys. The offensive line has been absolutely atrocious this year. And I don't care if, there are some guys, you couldn't bring in anybody that could actually play. I mean, you got 3 guys that could play, and, there's basically that. So, again, the staff has just done an abysmal job. The city's totally out on Brent Brennan. We're going to talk about it in the, obviously in the post-game show. But what happens if Arizona gets boat raced? I don't believe that you can bring back Brent Brennan. The problem with Brennan, too, is that you watch him and he just, again, there's some people that just look like they're in over their heads. They don't inspire confidence. We've all seen that in our daily walks of life where you're like, wow, that guy might be a nice guy, but that's not who I want doing X, Y, Z. Brent Brennan is that when it comes to Power 4 football. And it's going to be up to Desiree Reed-Francois to try to figure out what to do here. Do you bring him back? Do you decide that, I can't bring him back. I can't risk this because there's going to be nobody at our games. There's going to be a lot, and I mean a lot, that is going to go into this decision. But I think at the end of the day, especially if you lose against Houston, I think the decision's kind of made for you because you're not going to be better by, like I said, losing T-Mac, by losing Jonas Savanea. He's just done an atrocious job. There's no other way to put it. And, watching it, he's now talking about injuries. He's now talking about, about how the team wasn't necessarily, and behind the scenes, he's talking about how the team wasn't really that good that he inherited because kind of it was lightning in a bottle situation. Just not that good. So it is what it is, but he's behaved himself into this situation, or he is a lack of behavior into himself into this situation by basically isolating himself and now saying that he's begging for fan support. People aren't stupid, dude. They know exactly where you've been this whole time, and they're not falling for it. The city's out on him, and again, I was fine with the hire. But very early on, I was like, all right, there's some stuff here that doesn't make any sense at all. And, it started with the emails where he's saying, yeah, we want the fan base to show up. And then would say at the end of the media emails, do not tell anybody where you can find any of this. Yeah, no, that's not, that's disingenuous at best. And so there's obviously that. But we will be back with you, though. We're going to talk about Arizona basketball and Arizona football. And because, again, Friday, we're going to have a double dip. We're going to have Arizona basketball against Wisconsin, and then we're going to have Arizona football against Houston. One thing I do want to say, though, is that players like Noah Fafita, T-Mac, have the utmost support here. We don't blame you for any of this. We know what you can do. Noah Fafita is one of my all-time favorite players here. And not only is he one of my favorite players, he is a player that wherever he goes, if he stays here or goes elsewhere, I wish him nothing but the best, and he will have a excuse me, he will have a lifelong fan in me. So there is that. But on that note, though, it's a tough situation all the way around. So Arizona's got to figure out what's going on there, and hopefully you can have hopefully you can rectify the situation down the road. But on that note, though, as always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Again, Friday, double dip. We got Arizona football. We got Arizona basketball. Post game, we'll get you ready for the next week, because then that's going to be Duke week. But on that note, appreciate you all. Thanks for keeping Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day.